gone down to start debating the what? The proposals. And I call upon different stakeholders not to shy away from providing what they feel they have to debate on at this particular time on the proposals. We have to discuss the proposals. That is where we are going. Let me just in ending indicate two important provisions that we are very much happy about. We are not amongst the things we were debating over when we were going around on various media houses talking about the need for constitutional amendment. There is now a provision in the Constitution that states how long ministers are going to stay in office. This was not there, and to me, I was even shocked when I saw that coming out from the minister, because in a way, it was like the ministers disadvantaging themselves, because apparently that passed through Parliament. You can imagine ministers saying, in as much as we are proposing that members of Parliament should go for 5 years, but as ministers, 90 days before election, we can vacate office. That in itself shows clearly that there was no political desires of someone wanting to give themselves an advantage through the constitution process. So we have a lot now to debate on, finally, that we have this particular document. And the aspect of us now cancelling, not cancelling elections. You remember we as Gears had gone to court over the issue of candidates withdrawing from an election and it being cancelled. The case that we won, and it was ruled that members of candidates who are independent, when they withdraw from an election, the election should not be cancelled. But now what remains is, what about candidates from the ruling party, from the political parties? Finally, that has found itself in the proposals, that any candidate who withdraws from an election should not cause the cancellation of that election. Ladies and gentlemen, those progressive provisions have made us, as a civil society organization, a part and parcel of constitution making to find it necessary to discuss these issues. And I'm very excited that this team accepted when I requested that I want to be part of your discussion, because there's no way we can only be discussing these things as political parties. It is like you political parties sharing blows as political parties. Let us also be part of the discussions, so that it doesn't look like you people are just throwing punches on each other. We need to participate as civil society, because we are a great stakeholder when it comes to the constitution making process. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I recognize my friends here at the table, starting with Mr. Lakson Lungu, who has just spoken to us from Gears. I also recognize a member of our media team, Mr. Zaza McQueen, and of course our media director, Max Moe. Thank you very much for being here again at short notice. We value the work that you are doing. And allow me perhaps to begin in a very informal way by commending you, the media, for the work that you are doing to set the record straight, to correct some people who are trying to spread lies, malicious propaganda, misinformation, including hate speech, over the current debate. Some of the people are calling on, and they would say things that are not correct. Please continue helping us by correcting such people, including myself. If I call on a radio station, I'm on set, you are interviewing me, and compared to the next door constituency, meaning that this constituency that is too big in terms of population, they need to get more. They need to get more money. And HH is saying, once that is done, CDF will go to that new constituency, the same value. So an area which used to get 36 million before will get double that amount. Who should be against that? Let's talk about ministers vacating their offices 90 days before elections. A selfish politician, if President HH were selfish, he would not support such a clause. He would want the ministers to remain in office so that they can abuse government resources and so on. But here you have a political party. You have a president that is saying the ministers should vacate office 90 days before the elections. And we all remember that this matter was actually a matter of litigation when former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu directed that the ministers needed to remain in office. The courts ruled to the contrary. This time around, once that clause is supported and the Constitution is amended as such, it would be plain, it would be very clear. All the clauses are very progressive. I've heard somebody saying on social media to say all the clauses are perfect, progressive. There's only one clause, which is a killer clause. The clause that will sink this process the same way butane was sunk. And you'll be shocked to hear what that clause they're talking about. It's about increasing the number of members of parliament to be nominated by the president. And some of them are shamelessly trying to hoodwink the people by saying you are going to give a lot of powers to HH to increase the number of nominated members of parliament, maybe to 50, maybe to 100, even 500, because that power will be given to him. And it will undermine the balance of power in parliament. As a matter of fact, I must acknowledge that I too was not well informed on that matter. I too was not well informed on that matter. And today I've learned something I didn't know before, I have to admit. And I'll tell you what it is. And I'm underscoring this point to let you know that some of the people out there who are speaking don't have the monopoly of wisdom, and some of them lack information. And in their misguided arrogance, they want to mislead the people. I too didn't know. It was my brother this morning as we were chatting here who told me that in fact the number of nominated members of parliament is part of the policy that is practiced in this country and in other countries, where a percentage of the members of parliament is what is used, that scheme, to come up with the number of members of parliament that the president can nominate. And he told me in our case it's 5.1%. I didn't know that. It's 5.1%. He took out his phone, did some calculation, and it was coming to 7.9 members of parliament that the president can nominate. So that is rounded off to 8. So the president has no powers just to wake up and say, I want to nominate 20. No. As a matter of fact, it is ECZ that will recommend based on the increased number of members of parliament. To say now that we have 200 members of parliament because of the mixed member system, which means that there will be a party list. We have 200 for argument's sake. 5.1% of 200 is the number that the president will be able to nominate to parliament. And that will be communicated and clear in the policy. It was my brother here who was telling me. So even myself, I don't have the monopoly of wisdom. All of us, we don't have the monopoly of wisdom. We have to be humble and listen to one another. Some of our friends have got information we don't have, and they can educate us. So those who mean well are going to listen. They will not keep changing goalposts. They will listen. And when you are convincing, they should be able to say, oh, I didn't look at it that way. Now that we have explained, I understand, and I support this proposal. But you have already seen, you have already heard that they have no interest in building consensus. Their interest is just to oppose HH, because HH should not come back come 2026. That is up to the Zambian people to decide. For now, let us focus on what has been put before us and maturely, in a responsible way, discuss the proposals. So that the good things in these proposals, the good things can be adopted and we move forward as a country. I'll end my submission here. Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. Zaza.
Good morning, colleagues. I will ride on the salutations that have already been done by my colleagues. Safe to say that I'm very grateful that I'm part of this team that is here to clarify on certain things that happened yesterday, which are supposed to be of joy to a lot of us. So, yesterday, government, through the Minister of Justice, gave the people of Zambia, through Parliament, areas that government feels should be amended. And what is of interest in those areas is the fact that most of those areas emanate from the discussion that spurred from where? From court. And I'll be able to demonstrate how these areas came up and how government identified those areas. So it is not something that probably just came from the blues. It's something, the discomfort that the people of Zambia went through as we were trying to apply the new amendments to the Constitution that happened in 2016. Remember, the Constitution that Zambia today has is the 1991 Constitution, which has undergone amendment, constitutional amendments. So it's those constitutional amendments, sometimes they need to be refined, sometimes they need to be interpreted by court. And a lot of concerns came out of court. So as a responsible government, you need to answer to those concerns so that we do not have we do not have a number of litigation again in the after 2026 elections. The first concern is the issue of delimitation. Why is delimitation important? Delimitation is important because it answers to the inspiration of the people of Zambia. We have now constituencies, for example, I'll give Katombola. Katombola constituency borders Zimba, and it goes all the way, it goes round Livingstone and goes all the way up to, I think it's Sesheke. With such kind of constituency, then you look at Livingstone constituency, for example. A very small constituency, 36 million will go there. Katombola, very big constituency, will have 36 million, which means that Livingstone is benefiting more from the CDF than Katombola. So why can't we divide Katombola in such a way that even the people of Katombola start feeling the effect of CDF? So one of the reasons why delimitation is important is that it helps to answer where it feels that the Constitution should be amended, is the issue of enhanced representation. Now, what do we mean by enhanced representation? When you look at our parliament today, almost 90% of it is made up of what? A male-dominated parliament. From 1964 to today, why should we have a parliament that is male-dominated? Why should we have a parliament that is insensitive to people living with disabilities? Why should we have a parliament that is insensitive to our youths? Meanwhile, our youths make 80% of our population. And when you look at the youths that we have today, you look at their background, their education, you find that actually they need to be at the seat of governance. Women, when you look at last year's, the previous election, you will discover that actually more women voted than males. Yet, when we go to parliament, we have more males than females. Let those who are voting be part of the governance system. They've demonstrated that they want to be part of the governance system through voting. Let them also take up the role to govern. And that is why it is very important to enhance the participation of women, youths, and people living with disabilities. Yes, there are arguments that if the president meant well, he would have used the nomination clause to appoint more women, more youths. Let's assume the president appointed 8 youths. What were the women going to say? The women were going to say, no, us, you haven't included us. If the president decided, okay, let me just bring in women and no people without disabilities, again, the other groups were going to complain. In any event, that nomination clause only gives the president discretion. It is discretionary. It depends on the will of the president. Imagine you have a president like me who would say, okay, me, I want males. I'll appoint males because it's my discretion. And I do not have to explain that discretion to anyone. Now, what are we saying? We are saying that women, youths, and people living with disabilities need to be given a seat at the table, a guaranteed seat at the table. And it should not depend on the discretion of anyone, but the Constitution, which is an aspiration of the people of Zambia. Then there is another clause that talks about making clarity to certain provisions of the law. You remember after 2016 elections, we had a presidential petition. In that presidential petition, what was very clear was that the law had left a certain gap. And what was that gap? So the law provided that within 14 days you could hear the matter, but judgment could not be given within 14 days. So now, what is government proposing? One of the areas that government is proposing is that let's have 14 days, let that matter be heard in 14 days and determined in 14 days. What does that mean? It means that the matter will be heard and the judgment will be delivered within 14 days. That is the clarity that the people of Zambia would want to have, because leaving it to a judgment being given after 14 days, it would mean it can even come after 5 years, it can come after 3 years, then giving whatever the court is going to give academic. It's going to be an academic judgment, isn't it? Because it might take longer than what the people of Zambia would have loved. So stemming from that discussion, government has failed people of Zambia. What did the people agree before 2016, in 2016 amendments? It is 5.1%. So let's say we are going to increase the number of seats in parliament today to 250. So 5.1% of 250 is somewhere around 12, 11, isn't it? So meaning that number will be prescribed now in the Constitution. It will be prescribed in the Constitution. It will not be at the discretion of the president to say, I can increase to whatever number. No. That is another innuendo that is being, or a falsehood that is being spread. That number of nominated MPs will be prescribed in the Constitution itself. Or maybe the word prescribed is not very clear. It will be written in the Constitution itself. So it will not be up to the president to say, oh, since now there are 250 and my MPs are just 13, let me increase it to 250. No, it will be according to that percentage, and the number will be provided for in the Constitution. So no one again should come to you and lie that it will be at the discretion of the president, and if he wants, he can even increase to the equal number of seats in parliament. That cannot happen. Then there's also a progressive area that government wishes to float to the people, to spark debates. It's the issue of ministers. While they are proposing that a member of parliament should go now for 5 solid years, they've not given the same latitude to ministers. Now, that in itself shows selfless on the part of government. How does it show selfless? If government wanted, they would have just let ministers continue until elections. And what would that mean? It will mean that ministers now would abuse the resources, the vehicles, and everything in terms of campaigns. But the president is saying, no, 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 no. 90 days before election, you vacate your offices as cabinet ministers. If they had wanted, they would have even said, okay, at least 2 months before election. They've said 90 days. This shows selflessness on the part of government. Then there's another one that talks about who is proposing what and who is not proposing what. So all these things will be subject to a healthy debate and consensus building. And remember, colleagues, from yesterday up to June, government has given the people of Zambia, or everyone, the member of parliament, civil society, the churches, an opportunity to come forward and debate and give their own submission as to what they want to bring into the amended constitution. So there is no draft constitution today. There is no draft bill. There's nothing like that. What is there are areas, proposed areas that government feels should be amended. There was, I think I saw it on Facebook yesterday or the other day, an insinuation that you can delimit constituencies without the need of amending the constitution. That is a lie. Because if that was true, the previous administration would have implemented the delimitation without amending the constitution. But for you to delimit, you need to change the clause that is entrenched in the constitution that says that the seats are supposed to be 156. So to increase those seats, you need a constitutional amendment. Without that constitutional amendment, no matter what ECZ is going to propose, that cannot be implemented. So that, colleagues, should be very clear. I think I'll leave it at that, then Mark will continue.
You're not clapping.
The media.
I will got it there.
Maybe you can solve because the camera is finding it difficult. You can go to where it is.
Or in here. No.
Even
So how is the angle, friends with the cameras? Is it okay when I move? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Comrade Zaza, Father Frank Walia, and our comrade there from Gears, Laxton Lungu. Yeah, so I'll start by, before I continue, where my comrade ended, I'll start by dealing with the obvious. And the obvious is perhaps some people may be wondering, how has Gears found itself here? Not so. Huh? You heard from the minister yesterday that among the stakeholders that were making submissions on the amendments that they wanted to see in the Electoral Process Act were CSOs, not so. CSOs and every constitution-making process that we have had in Zambia has all these stakeholders, including CSOs. But of course, we came for a press conference. We also identify those that seem to perhaps speak to the things that we agree to. Because in a political game, you need to know who supports an idea which is similar to yours, not so. So that we can together come up with a document that will represent the aspirations of the people. Now, I had hoped that my comrade was going to go through all of them, but I think it was an issue of it being a mouthful. But the most important thing is for me to perhaps continue from where he ended. And this has to do with the definition, for example, of a youth. A number of us have been asking questions with regard to this, where there is a proposal to
amend Article 266 to clarify who a child is under 18, as many of us have been indicating that a child is one who is below 18 years. But we have had so many contradictions. And what are those contradictions? We have been excluding many people from participating in the electoral process. Anyone who is 18 years and below does not qualify to vote in Zambia. So we really need to redefine the word child. If you're a child, or in Zambia, for you to get an NRC, you must have attained the age of who? 16, no so. Why should we take someone to only participate in the electoral process when they are 18 years? Among other issues, I'm just giving an example. So therein lies some confusion. So this, for us, as UPND, is a progressive proposal, and this has been put to the public to debate. The other one is that of the Secretary to the Cabinet. You are aware that for a very long time, for you to become Secretary to the Cabinet, you must have at least worked in the same capacity for a minimum of 10 years. You are aware also that due to some of the changes that have been taking place for a very long time, you have instances where permanent secretaries could be changed, sacked, or fired within a short period of time. Now that poses a challenge in the administrative structure of the cabinet. So we agree that there is indeed need for us to bring it to 5 years. To 5 years. We agree. So that we can make it easy to have a wide range of options for the president to appoint a person that should be secretary to the cabinet. For political purposes, let me give an example. If the President HH has to get someone, we know that the office of the PS is a civil service position. But because it's an appointed position, over time it has been adulterated. It would also mean that if he has to appoint someone, he will appoint even those permanent secretaries that do not even agree. At times, they may not even agree with the UPND policy. So if you have permanent secretaries that understand the UPND policies, and they agree, and you have a wide range as head of state, it's easy to choose. So 5 years indeed is acceptable. It's also important for us to mention that we are in a different environment, in case many of you are not aware. Previously, for you to be permanent secretary, individuals needed to rise in the civil service hierarchically, but not anymore. I'm sure you know that. You can be appointed permanent secretary right from your field. You are busy sowing seed. You receive a call that you are PS. Previously, people used to rise hierarchically, but not anymore. That, in mind, leaves you with an option of having an amendment to this particular article so that we can have reduced the number of years. The next thing, which is being proposed, ministers, I think there was a reference to it, ministers or the office of the minister falling vacant, at least 90 days before the elections. Now, where does this leave us politically? Our friends in Bhutan were proposing the opposite. They wanted to amend the constitution so that ministers and MPs could remain in parliament. They wanted to amend Article 116 so that ministers and MPs could remain in parliament up to the election time. This is the selflessness you have heard from my colleagues, the earlier speakers. Selflessness. You can imagine when before this ministerial statement was prepared, obviously some ingredients may have been discussed in the cabinet. You can imagine these are people that are in the cabinet who could have been beneficiaries of the 90 days, but they have resolved under the chairmanship in the cabinet of President HH that these are public offices. It is not right for us to remain in the office up to the election time. That is a challenge on its own, which we must take seriously as citizens. The next point that we need to raise borders on the Attorney General. You may wish to know that there is a proposal that we amend Article 178(1)(b) and Article 179(4)(b) to retain officials until new appointments are made. It's very important for continuity. and to avoid unnecessary political upheavals where we believe even public offices or civil service offices should be politicized, like a cabinet office, which would require that a member of parliament should become a cabinet minister. So this is very good, because then there will be continuity in terms of the administration of justice. You are aware that the Attorney General is a legal counsel to government institutions, including some quasi-government institutions. Are we together? So why would he be subjected to political manipulation based on who takes over office? So it's a progressive idea which you, the journalists, who are the fourth estate, should help make known to members of the public. Because we have people that are not ashamed of lying. They will come around. I was listening to someone, I think a journalist called me this morning, to one breakfast show where a caller came in, comrades, and said that because Article 52 will be amended to cure the problem that has been there on nominations, that whoever wakes up in the morning, they quarrel with their wives, then they go and withdraw from the nominations, then you call for fresh nominations. That's what used to happen. This person is saying the very fact that you are stopping by, fresh nominations, and it means certain individuals will have been eliminated in case they die. This is a bad clause. Now let me say this. There is something in the Constitution which is similar to that kind of environment. It is a second ballot, assuming there is a deadlock on 50% plus one for the president. Other political parties that may have who agree to support a different candidate, even if they are their own candidate in the presidential race. In other words, you would argue on the same ground that if individuals who opt to unite and put their hands together through an alliance and support a particular candidate, who may have come out second and the one who came out first but could not garner 50% plus one, it is similar to the undertaking. In any case, when we are amending laws, there are all these things that will arise. But it's not a bad idea. Citizens can decide to vote for a person of their choice. In any case, this is the only way that we bring individuals into office. Okay, not that all of them are bad. Let me also wind up by speaking to specifics. This, for us, proposal is better than butane. How? Number one, butane, as you may have heard from my previous speakers, that there was a meeting in Siavonga organized by ZCCID, which meeting was triggered primarily by Patricia Scotland after the incarceration of President HH. That moving forward, there were recommendations that were made by the Commonwealth. Among them, law reform in terms of the Electoral Process Act, as well as upholding of freedoms and liberties of citizens, including certain gaps in the Constitution. ZCID, which is basically an institution that deals with conflicts, which promotes dialogue among political parties. They came up with a program in Siavonga and made proposals on what we wanted to see in the Constitution, including these things that you saw in yesterday's ministerial statement. Our colleagues went and searched, I'm sure you saw the battle which was there, which prompted UPND to withdraw its membership from ZCID. Okay? You remember. Because they were unfaithful to the initial document by manipulating and putting things that were not agreed upon. And these are the things that make this statement which was made yesterday better than butane. Because some people are saying, oh, this is another butane. But let me tell you, butane, in fact, sought to amend Article 124, also Article 127, which determines the number of judges that should sit at the Constitutional Court and Supreme Court. That power to be relegated to Parliament. And yet we know that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. We were opposed to that. That's the difference. And being the difference, it is not part of what we heard yesterday. Secondly, butane also sought to amend the preamble, where it talks about multi-religion, to introduce Christian nation. And our agreed upon position was that we have not collectively agreed. We do not agree in many instances. We have so many of our brothers, some are Hindus, some are Christians, others are Muslims. So this document for yesterday can be glorified by ourselves by saying that it's different from butane. Are we together? Thirdly, they wanted to repeal the provisions that establish commissions Our argument that time, because I've heard already journalists saying, hey, HH oppose some of the things he has brought. I think let us help people understand the difference. They wanted to remove commissions. Our argument was that commissions provide an oversight role through delegated legislation. Because the principle, like I mentioned last time, under delegated legislation is that the person who delegates the powers to another office bearer or institution cannot exercise them. So, in so doing, that's an oversight role. Bill 10 also wanted to make an amendment to the law that provides for the establishment of the chairmanship of the House of Chiefs. It was in the Bill 10. They wanted the House of Chiefs leadership to be subjected to an open ballot, like politics. We were opposed to that, but those are things which were in Bill 10. I'm reminding you. The next point, the power to merge or create provinces without parliamentary ratification. They wanted to remove it. In other words, they wanted to empower the president to wake up on the following day around a cup of coffee and he starts creating provinces and merging provinces without anyone checking the president. It was a bad proposal in Bill 10. We don't find it in yesterday's speech. The next point, which I need to raise, they also wanted to repeal Article 184, which basically holds accountable the minister, permanent secretaries, and other office bearers. You remember that we have had permanent secretaries appearing before the Public Accounts Committee at Parliament. They wanted to remove that. Because then that was going to take away transparency and checks and balances. We were opposed to that. All those things were found in Bill 10. Are we able to find them here? I don't think so. Again, they wanted to amend Article 8, where you find the national values, morality, and all those things. They wanted to add the word to morality, Christian values. And yet, even within the Christian circles, we have no commonly agreed upon position on what amounts to morality. You know he's a clergy, not just an ordinary clergy. There's a lot of learning that goes on for priests. You know that. I was myself trained partly by priests, a Jesuit. I've never told you. Professor Dillon Malone. They are well baked. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that, friends, as the media, let us help citizens. This is not a document for lawyers. It's a document for the people of Zambia. If we take things lightly and take them as business as usual, we are going to injure ourselves. What document we come up with will haunt us if at all we manipulate it to our political satisfaction. Most of the things that are contained in here are progressive and they will help the country. Can you imagine how a minister who is enjoying all those privileges arrived at a decision to knock themselves out of the office 90 days? It's a very difficult decision to make. Now it is up to us to make the right decisions. In winding up, a journalist this morning says, hey, it's a bad law because other political parties will be eliminated. There is also, we have room. These are just proposals. They are not clauses. They are not proposed clauses, no. We have room, for example, to come up with mixed member representation. We have room in order to allow for different individuals, which include persons living with disabilities, women, youths as well. And also for us journalists to start arguing that the president is not serious because he has 8 nominated members of parliament. Then you ask a question like, how many youths has he appointed? That's a weak, no, this has continued to recur. What percentage is 8 nominated members? It's 5.13%. Now the president is saying, can we have 50%? That's the difference. Huh? That's what he's saying. There's a difference there. And I also belabored to mention, comrade, that 8% you are seeing, that 8 nominated members of parliament you are seeing, it helped the president balance up his cabinet by region. By allowing, first of all, 2 women to come in. Then, secondly, by picking people in areas where UPND had no MPs. You know that there are provinces where UPND failed to garner MPs. You know that. But that particular number restricts him. He can't go beyond, as my comrade has indicated. Then I have heard some of you have again quoted Article 250, 259 too. 259. Again, we want to emphasize, it is discretionary. What we want are strong institutions. By not relying on people's goodwill, there must be an express provision on how many youths we want to see in parliament. again, that particular provision, Article 259, it's not about parliament. It's about other public offices. Now you also have, if you go to permanent secretary positions, also challenge those that are criticizing us. How many women we have appointed to positions of permanent secretary? Minister of Education, you find a woman. Minister of SMEs, you find a woman. Huh? Are we together? Minister of which other ministries? The state functions, permanent secretary, you find a woman there. Dr. Muswan. Many other ministries, you can name them. You find their women there. Actually, if you get the number of ministries, you discover that we have already hit 50%. 50% we have already hit it. So I want to end by, first of all, thanking all of you for coming. And I thought we would give this time an opportunity to many of you, our friends from different media houses, to ask questions on the things that have not been presented. Huh? We may have exclusive interviews, eh? Yes, that's what we are going to do.
So thank you so much, colleagues. Yeah. It's now time to ask questions. Remember, the tradition is that you introduce yourself and the media house that you represent. And then you ask a question. Be brief, direct to the question. We'll take 4. You can just raise a hand and then point at you to ask questions on what has been delivered. As I've seen a hand there. Okay, you can start, my sister.
Just what?
Because there are concerns from the traffic that the 25% of the submissions made are politically charged, and they're just looking after, like the country is going into an election. Secondly, if the agenda of what is supposed to submit, there are concerns that once that teller the type of submission, for example, and personally, I have also noticed, this is me speaking on my own capacity, there are issues like gender-based violence which have not been addressed. I know you say we are still working around the proposed bill, but there are certain issues such as gender-based violence which have not been added into the proposed bill, and other issues that affect women. So I wanted to find out if you consider this proposed bill as something which is very politically charged and looking forward to an upcoming election.
Thank you, Madam Boalia.
Okay.
I'll allow Comrade Mark to respond, then Mr. Zamel.
Yeah, then they will come in also.
Yes.
Jesse, thank you very much. This is not a bill. You want to emphasize that? It's not a bill.
As I said.
Those are basically areas where we thought there are certain gaps we need to address. At least almost 70% of what has been proposed have been issues of litigation in court. You heard my colleague talk about hearing and determination. We have not stated whether we will maintain 14 days. Now, upon considering what it takes to hear and determine the matter, it is now citizens who have been allowed to decide. In other words, there is nothing politically charged because these are already in the Constitution. Except now, and we are not repealing to cancel, but we are amending. So there is nothing politically charged. We are basically dealing with things that are already there, except we want to write them differently. Are we together? Now, so it's not a bill. These are areas that we believe could be looked at. Do we get the point? Now, let me say this. The ones that provide the roadmap mostly, for a very long time, has been the executive. From whatever angle you look at it, after submissions have come, people have debated and how they need to, how they want this to be crafted, citizens themselves. Then a bill will be prepared to be presented in it. Now that will be called the Constitution Amendment Bill. Do we get it? So now, it's a good question because it gives us an opportunity to clarify certain things. That it is not a bill because there is no drafted Constitution Amendment Bill, which is accompanied by the number of 2025. It's not a bill, right? Secondly, it is not politically charged because these are provisions which are already there. We just want to write them differently so that there is sanity. Are we together? Because people have been saying there's too much of by-elections. and a drain on the national coffers. We have countries that have done that before, like South Africa. They have cured it. In South Africa, because they have a proportional representation and mixed member proportion representation, what they would do, if an MP dies, they will not call for fresh elections, by-elections. They will simply recommend another name, that political party upon which the MP stood during the elections will submit another name. Then they have avoided a by-election. So we are not the first ones to talk about these things. That's how our friends avoided the by-elections. But why should South Africa, which is younger than us in terms of independence, be ahead of us? Also, that is a challenge. Eh? Then the next one, on where you are saying that, don't you think government has already set the agenda? Now, we should give the agenda to the country. What we have is representative democracy, not so. It is not direct democracy. I'm sure all of you understand, those of you who have done even some introduction to political science. It's a representative democracy. That things that should be done by the people that we elect to do them on your behalf. So you elect those people, then they come up with these proposals, they set the tone, then you follow it. And there are some things that some people may even disagree with, yes, among the things that have been proposed. So it will now up to government, in a narrower sense, the executive, to sit down and say, people have disagreed with this particular clause. Before we draft the bill, let us drop it. Again, this has just opened the debate as a framework. It gives, there could also be other things that people will raise and say, in this particular matter, can we also look at this other article? Then they write, because it is not law. These are mere submissions that are being made, and the roadmap being put, the period that has been given to us, giving us a framework on how we are going to go, should help us now not waste time on non-issues, but to quickly fill in those things that we identify as gaps. Okay, so I thought I needed to end here. GBV lastly, when my comrade will come in. You see, what we have done in Zambia is that we have so many sources of law, okay, under Article 7 of the Constitution of Zambia. So many sources of law. Among them, part of them is the Constitution, which is supreme. Then you have acts of parliament. You have the Anti-GBV Act. If you want so many things to be enhanced, let us visit. You are dealing with the issues of GBV. They are usually, the principal act is the Anti-GBV Act. Yes. We attend to it, we amend it in a manner that we believe will protect the interests of the gender that is most affected. You should also understand that Anti-GBV Act is not there to protect women, because that is it is there to protect either male or female. You've heard of women that are men that are being battered today. So you need to not to confuse this one with the issue, the idea to incorporate women participation. We should not confuse them. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. To just augment what my brothers just said. So what we have right now is similar to a family. Husband and wife. The husband proposes, I want to buy meat, I want to buy bread, and I want to buy milk. Then he gives that proposal to you, the wife. Then you as a wife now, you say, okay, the milk you want to buy, I think we can only manage from the amount of money that we have, 2 kg. It's a consensus, you understand? Looking at what you have. So what the government has given you is not a bill. It's proposed areas which they feel should be amended. And these are proposed areas that, especially those who go to court, we had a lot of litigation over. So now, why should you be having litigation over Article 52 time and again? We should put this to a halt. You understand? So it is a response to that. But even then, it depends on us, the people of Zambia, to say, we want that to happen or we don't want it to happen. It is a mere proposal. These are areas of that government feels that they should be amended. So if the citizens at the end of the day are going to have other areas, those areas will be put into, remember at the end of this journey, there is a report that will go to government and that will also go to the people of Zambia at the same time. So that in itself will show that there are certain things that government, what the people are going to say, no, us we do not want this, us we want this. You understand? It is just to spur conversations, to spur debates, healthy debates such as the ones that we are having today. Now, when you look at the issue of certain proposals that government has brought to spur these debates, government has not even said we want proportional representation, we want mixed. It hasn't. It wants the people of Zambia to come up with what they think will be the best to enhance female participation, to enhance youth participation, and to enhance people living with disabilities. Maybe we might propose that per province we are going to have what we are going to have. I'm just giving an example. Maybe the people are going to come up with a proposal that, no, this enhancement or guarantee can happen if provinces are going to have what we call provincial MPs. So in those provincial MPs, we are going to have 4-4. So 2 women living with disabilities, 2 youths, and 2 youths, 2 women living with, 2 youths, 2 women, and 2 people living with disabilities, meaning each province will have 6 provincial MPs. That is up to the people of Zambia. Government is just saying we need to enhance. How are we going to enhance? What is going to find itself in the draft bill will determine what the people, after consultation in around June, what the people are going to say. Okay? No one should lie to you. That's the reason why it is quite premature for anyone to say these proposals and the Bill 10 are the same. Bill 10 is a bill. These are not in a bill form. They are just mere proposals, which proposals can also come from you. Whereas in Bill 10, you cannot add. You could not add. You understand? You could not add. They prescribed already what was supposed to be there. But here, they are giving you something that you can have a talking point. Those are what they call talking points. Okay?
Thank you. We'll take 2 more questions. Allow your colleagues to go back to your various working stations and write stories. Do we have 2 questions?
Even one last.
Even one last? Oh, yes, that's fine. Isn't it, colleagues? Thank you. Thank you so much.
So you deal with the housekeeping itself.
Thank you so much. As usual, we'll allow our speakers to leave, then the rest of us will remain for housekeeping. Thank you so much for coming, colleagues. Looking forward to watch the news.
So for housekeeping, you follow our colleague